We're recording the thing.
Yep, we're recording the thing.
From here on out, it's all fixed in post.
Good to go?
Yep.
Good to go. Beverage? You want to do it?
No, you're supposed to do it.
It's a really, really bad clap. Are there ever good ones? Ah! Bazing.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Welcome back to A Defense of the Awkward Moment. With me as always is Michael Zupon, and joining us once again is Aaron Razor.
Because apparently I didn't get enough the first time.
It's true. Can you ever?
You never know.
Top 5 favorite video games is the topic for today. Yet another list, a smaller list, not an hour and a half this time.
You say that now.
True, there are several runners up. Top 5 video games. Top 5 video games for us. I'm sure there'll be a great deal of debate here, but I had a pretty solid list in mind, and I'll be really, really interested to see just how much overlap there is between my list and y'all's list.
Y'all.
Indeed.
We'll kick us off. What's your number 5?
In no particular order, so let's get that out of the way.
Yeah,
let's get that out of the way
that's
right
a little
now.
hard right there.
But I will tell you what number 1 is. Number 1's been a staple for me for
We'll save it.
years and years and years. Is BioShock. The
That's
original.
not saving it.
Yeah, you're right. That's not. You said save it. I thought you said let's have it. We'll fix it in post. Yeah, BioShock. Hands down. There are games with better story. There are games with better graphics. There are games with better individual things. But you roll all of those. BioShock's got an amazing story. It's got amazing graphics. At the time, it had incredible gameplay. Really, really unique power usage, and just the setting of the whole game was like playing through a living noir film.
Well, the fictional universe that they created for it.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody having powers being part of the downfall of how everything went down. Not to spoil anything for anybody, but everybody underwater trying to live in this utopia world while everybody else is surviving through World War whatever. And just, it was kind of a great start.
The original trailer for this that launched when the game came out for 360 talked an awful lot about people make decisions, but our decisions really make us. And then they went into a first-person view of the main character Jack going after a little sister,
Yep.
and the consequences of doing that. And that just, I remember being so, oh my god, is this game about clubbing little children with a pipe wrench?
At times.
But yes, at times.
Depends on how evil you want.
Depends on how evil you want it. Just a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Phenomenal game. I bought the re-edition of it when it was remastered. It and BioShock 2 and BioShock Infinite when they were all remastered for PlayStation 4. And this was a game, for me anyway, that was so good that my wife let me buy a 42-inch television and then immediately monopolize it as my computer monitor, and set it up in our living room, just so in the evenings when I started playing BioShock on the PC, she could sit and watch it. And it was just like playing through a movie. That's an amazing game. That's the first one on my list. It also happens to be my number 1 all-over favorite video game of all time. Aaron?
Do we start with number?
No, you can start with whatever you want.
Yeah.
Start with 5, end with 1.
Well,
it's a countdown.
And see, the conversational topic started off with games that have a personal impact for you, and where a lot of people would agree that there are a ton of games out there. Honestly, one that I've got to mention is World of Warcraft. And it's not because of what they did in the world, it's because the people that I played it with for so long.
Wow.
That, there were people that I played games with, well, and not even guild, it was people that I worked with. And it was, we had a tank, we had DPS, we had heals. We had the perfect triumvirate right up front to be able to do anything. Our tank ran off way too often doing stupid things, and I was the healer going, wait, come back.
Leroy.
Yeah, exactly. But that was one of those games that will have a kind of little treasure because of, I mean, the people that I played with, I've known them for the better part of 10 years now. And we will always go back to that being that heyday where we had great times playing. It formed a lot of bonds.
10 years old?
Oh, it's much longer than that.
Oh
It's
my God.
14, I think, because it was a couple years old when we started playing it, and they were trying to pull people in, but...
Blizzard, I suspect there will be several Blizzard games mentioned here before it is said and done.
Only one more.
Well, there's a couple more for me.
Yeah.
There's just something. I played World of Warcraft for all of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Before that, I did the Dark Age of Camelot. I did the EverQuest. I did
EverQuest.
Rift. Did the EverQuest thing, and certainly had my fun playing all of them. But legitimately, World of Warcraft, for the people that played it and got into it, is the only game that I know of where years and years and years later, they'll come out with a new expansion. Oh, well, I gotta go dust this character off and check out the new... There's just something about the game.
Well,
it's Girl Scout cookie material.
And
it's the crack.
For the Horde and for the Alliance are two things that they did such a great job on the marketing campaign for it that you've got people who wear the shirts. And we'll get into conflicts and conversations about it, even though they haven't played the game in 5 years. It's like, screw the Alliance. I love the Horde.
Something about the game.
Yeah.
Something about the game. Completely understandable. Master Zupan.
Number 5 for me, and we talked a little bit about this previously, is right now I got to go with Borderlands 2.
Oh,
Not.
how did I forget about
it was-
Borderlands?
And honestly, it would be in the honorable mention category until Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep came out.
Oh, come on.
That DLC.
Even the first one, I mean, the story alone on the first one was awesome character voice, but two...
The base game was, fun, and it was replayable, and you could play it with your friends, and, you could go out and get good loot. But then Tiny Tina came along and riffed off of the events of the base game in such a way that it made everything more meaningful. It made everything more poignant. It turned it from just, hey, let's go blow stuff up, to, hey, this has got a really cool story with impacts that affect the other characters. And
her processing what happened.
Oh, God, I know.
whole journey of, all 5 stages of grief just throughout the playing a DLC for a first-person shooter. It's just, it turned amazing.
It was years, and Borderlands 2 is on my list of honorable mentions. Was planning on covering that at the end of this video. Borderlands 2 is absolutely on my list of honorable mentions. It was a considerable... I'd played the game through several times on 360, and again, I think with you, years later on a Mac. I was playing on my Mac, and it wasn't until then that I finally spent the money and got Tiny Tina's. And I got the stink eye from so many people, including Christy Chatterton, about...
Hi, Christy.
You have played... Hi! Hi, Yukio! You have played all the way through this game, and you have not played Assault on Dragon Keep. Then I finished playing Assault on Dragon Keep, and I was like, oh, holy...
I feel bad for myself that I'm not playing through
Can I raise a hand?
You haven't done it.
Not played it
I
yet?
played about 15 minutes into it. I have not finished it. I stopped at Torg at the front gates. I
still have it on my computer. I still have it on my Mac upstairs. If ever there was a reason to spin
to light that back up.
Mr. Bony Pants guy.
I mean, and being a D&D nerd, I loved the way they pulled the
Roll for initiative, bitches!
Exactly. Well, and I mean, Tiny Tina, let alone just in Borderlands 2, was probably one of my favorite characters to watch. Hell, the ringtone on my phone is Squishy. Squishy. The electrification of the guys, doing her little tea party and
Flesh stick?
Yeah,
Flesh
Mr. Flesh Stick.
Mr.
Yeah.
Flesh Stick.
They had Making It Rain. I mean, all the things. Tiny Tina, just the voice actress did an amazing job with it.
I got bored.
Good plan? Great plan. No, fantastic. Fantastic game. We will, I have it. He has it. We'll officially start making playdates do that because it's worth it. It really, really is.
As an adult, I have to make time to play games.
Oh God, because there's no other way.
Wait.
Boring
Moving on.
adulthood.
If you want to play games with other people, yeah, you got to make play dates.
All right,
Just
so
like TNT.
before we do this check, next one for you.
Next one for me,
Next one for you.
StarCraft.
I absolutely with you on that one. 96, that started off just this game frenzy where everybody played it. Honestly, I think that was probably the best designed game for multiplayer because it came with a spawn editions. So you didn't have to have a full copy. You could load it up on an entire LAN and everybody could play.
We tested when I was in college many moons ago. We tested our IPX networks, which will date me. We tested our IPX networks with StarCraft. We had a guy came in and installed spawn copies of it. We tested for latency. We tested for ping. We tested all that to make sure. And there were legitimate in-class experiments with routing tables so that you could increase or decrease player performance. And StarCraft was the benchmark for all of that in the class. I got into the game, I think probably 3 years. After I got out of high school, a buddy introduced me to StarCraft my first year in college, and it destroyed my freshman semester. Absolutely
Productivity
destroyed it.
went down.
Because I was like, oh, you mean I can skip class? Not only did I skip just a ton of class playing StarCraft, but then when I finally beat the campaign, I was like, oh, that was an amazing game. And they're like, look, we just dropped Brood War.
And the storyline for that game was really well written, in my opinion.
Oh my
They
gosh.
had such a great set of characters.
And that gets continued upon. The story after Brood War gets continued upon with Wings of Liberty and HOTS when they release the sequels for that game, which are not on my list for what it's worth. They're still wonderful games, but the original OG StarCraft. So much time. I don't know how many friends I hooked up with null modem cables.
Oh, wow.
Null modem cables, lugging PCs to people's houses. We're not talking about the version on the Nintendo 64. It can burn. We're talking about the version on the PC.
Apparently there's a little bit of fervor
Apparently
there.
it's a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, Master Zupon.
Number 4 on my list is ancient game, probably older than you. 1987, Sid Meier's Pirates.
Sure.
Wow.
Sail the Ocean Blue. I played that game so much that I used to be able to pick out the modern day cities just on a blank map. It's like, yeah, that's Maracaibo, and over there, that's, yes.
No, Pirates was a great game.
Fantastic game.
And what
And the remake's good too.
what was cool about Pirates was the level of functionality you got for the state the computers were at in 1987. 1987, you were dealing
Floppy drives
optimistically with like
and-
386s.
If you were happy.
Yeah.
386s, something like that.
486 was like in the middle of, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the 386s
NTM.
with turbo boost.
Yeah.
Yeah, an extra 10 megahertz.
Everything on floppy disk.
Yeah,
The copy protection came in the manual. You couldn't lose the manual.
Flip to page 63
Yep.
and read the second word of.
God.
Well, no, it was tell us where the Spanish treasure fleet's going to be in November of 1860, whatever. You'd have to, okay, yeah, it's here. Or 1688. Okay, it's going to be there. It's going to be over there.
No, fantastic game. Fantastic game. Fun fact for everybody else, I believe after Sid Meier got done with Pirates was when he started it with Civ, isn't it? Had he released Civ 1 prior to Pirates?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe that Pirates predated Civ. Fantastic game.
Fun game. Just,
Oh.
you know, and
Mr. Reason?
he beat those Disney
Oh,
people. The
that's
Pirates of the
something else
Caribbean
that's
stuff
not on
was-
my list. Crap! That'll go in the honorable mentions section at the end.
Pirates of the Caribbean?
No,
Right?
Monkey
No.
Island.
Oh.
Oh, well, yes.
Come on.
Oh God, there's something else I didn't put on the list.
Leisure Suit Larry?
No,
You
another.
could mention Monkey Island and Leisure Suit Larry around that same time
We
frame.
were. If anybody was wondering, this is where this video goes off rails. No, there's another. There's another point and click game called Loom, and it was a
Loom? Go for
LucasArts game.
Myst.
Yeah, Loom was there was music involved in it, and
That's fair.
in that same vein, we were talking about Monkey Island, the whole point and click adventure thing. Short game. My wife actually, God bless her, found me a copy of it that I can run in Windows years and years and years later. I think she got it for me as a anniversary present.
Loom or Monkey Island?
Loom.
Okay.
Dude, Monkey Island has been remastered several times. You can find good copies of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, that have been very well remastered now. That game's got legs. Reeling this back in, number 2.
Yeah, well, we're going to go on to the next one. We've already covered StarCraft because that one was on my list, but Darksiders is one that I really enjoy. Just because not only is it a really fun design, it was a kind of, not a platformer at the time, but it was a hit and smash kind of game. But they had some really cool story writing, and even Mark Hamill
was the voice of the little midget,
not even
the
midget.
demon thing.
He was the demon on the shoulder of war who was supposed to keep him in chains throughout the entire game, and that goes sideways badly. But probably one of the best representations I've seen of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. You got done with the first game and you're like, oh my god, when's the next one coming? And they hurt everybody. I mean, it really sucks that Vigil Games closed shop, but they sold off the IP, and I've heard that the third one is But the second one, when they pulled Death out, was just a lot of fun because that's when they finally put in some dynamics into the inventory system that you would have random drop items, kind of like Borderlands, that wouldn't do anything to the weapons in the game what you were fighting with, but the effects that they had changed based off of how you powered them up in the backgrounds and all that. So you wouldn't see flames like you would out of Borderlands, but you would see the different weapons do things. But Darksiders, the first one, just you've got this big hulking brute running around with a sword that's something out of Final Fantasy VII to cut people in half. And it was a game where you'd slice arms off, you'd slice legs off, depending on the different moves. It wasn't dynamic, there was only scripted setups, but it was a lot a lot of fun.
You just made me think of another honorable mention title.
You know, you gotta stop doing that, or make an addendum video after this.
Or just run it in the credits.
Yeah, we're gonna go through the list of honorable mentions. It'll be like 2 pages long per person.
It'll be a Marvel movie length trailer.
9 minutes
credits
at the end.
So patience. Patience.
Number 3 on the list for me, and this is kind of a tie between the two games, Mass Effect 2.
Mass Effect was going to come in here at some point.
No.
And kind of Mass Effect 3 dovetailed onto it. But of the 3 Mass games, I firmly believe that Mass 2 was the best of those games. Played the crap out of Mass 3 multiplayer.
Honestly, the reason why Mass 2 wins for me over Mass 1 is they didn't have the freaking elevators of Doom. That was the worst design choice for a loading screen out of anybody, because they didn't even add elevator music into it. I know it's Alien, so the elevator music could have been weird.
Anything.
Yeah, but
Hypersonic.
5-minute loading time while you're waiting to move on to the next section. The only reason why I didn't ever finish Mass Effect 2 was I hated the ammo system that they included in it.
The thermal clips.
Yep.
That's the largest point of contention for anybody that doesn't care for those games. That played the first one, loved it, and then played the second one was the thermal clip system. There were a lot of people that absolutely hated it.
I finished the first game, loved it, thought the story was awesome, dying to get to the second one. Second one killed it for me with the ammo clips. Within the first 20 minutes of the game, I was running out of ammo as a long-range character, and all I had was a pistol. And that pissed me off because they had them locked to you can only do certain types of weapons. No, I was done.
It was like sidearm weapon, shotgun weapon, and long arm weapon, I think, were the 3. Oh, and the special weapon ammo when you got to like the missile launchers and the portable nuke and stuff like that. No, I Mass 2, and again, by honorable mention, Mass 3, just because of the multiplayer.
And everyone loved the ending.
It's true. Everyone loved the ending so much that they did it again. Master Zupon.
Number 3 for me is a 2009 game from a company we haven't mentioned today, BioWare.
Oh.
Well, except for the Mass Effect stuff.
Except for just
the other Dragon Age franchise.
Okay.
As opposed to the Mass Effect franchise. Specifically the first one. The second one had a couple memorable characters. Inquisition, not my favorite, but the original Dragon Age Origins, fantastic. Okay, they had great voice acting. You had Tim Curry, nobody's ever heard of him. Kate Mulgrew, no one's ever heard of her. Claudia Black,
no one's ever heard of her.
No one's ever heard of her.
She double dipped into the Mass Effect games.
Yeah, she jumped across. But I just love everything about it. I loved all the sidekicks. I mean, we've talked Mass Effect sidekicks before, and in a straight fight, the Mass Effect team would win, but Rex and Sten would be best buddies forever.
It's true.
Leliana and Talia would be best friends. Morgan's no friends with anybody, but
Starting to wonder if some of your D&D characters have a little bit of Dragon Age in them at all.
Are you thinking Ogren?
I have no idea.
No, because Dorvar never really got that drunk.
Because that stopped anybody.
Well, I'm just saying that was pretty much Ogren's thing. Was he was drunk, but Ogren was fun. Even Zevran was fun once you got past the creepazoid factor.
It was a big hump, but once you got over it,
Flirting with everything. I mean, once you got past that initial thing, but yeah, I love Dragon Age.
My wife. Dragon Age was actually the first game that I ever saw synergy between that and another game because of BioWare. I got special Dragon Age loot in my Mass Effect game because my wife bought me copies of both and I registered them in EA's service.
Do you see that space alien running over there? He's got a sword. What's he going to do with that? Die, probably.
Yeah, horribly.
Yeah.
Horribly. What of it, sir?
I'll save my top two just because, but I'll toss in Supreme Commander. If you've never played the Total Annihilation series, Total Annihilation was the one that kind of started it off. Supreme Commander was made by part of the same house, I think, that did it. But Supreme Commander was basically an RTS game that took the scale of what you could do in army size and blew it so far out of proportion that it got insane. Some of the maps you could do and some of the technology that you had were just awesome because eight-person map and you would have armies that would be in the 10,000 range.
Jesus, Warcraft.
Yeah,
Warcraft
well,
40K. Not Warcraft, Warhammer.
Warhammer,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Warcraft, StarCraft, all the rest had limits for a specific reason, but when you had armies in Supreme Commander, not Total Annihilation. Total Annihilation had its own thing, but Supreme Commander, when you had a naval fleet that was bombarding enemy cities from halfway across the coast, nuclear weapons, giant walking robot tanks. They even had a robotic T-Rex / lizard that would go and breathe fire as one of the
Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, pretty much. But it was just one of those really awesome games because it took that scale and blew it up so far. You could have just amazing combats.
No, was Supreme Commander? That wasn't a Westwood CNC game. It was its own title.
No, it was its own because Total Annihilation wasn't even. It was around the same time that Command and Conquer came out.
But
it was another competing house, but they focused more on the technology versus semi-realistic or semi-true to history designs of Russians and Americans and Chinese. They did more scientific, and then after Total Annihilation 1 and 2, I think the company folded. And I may be way off base, and somebody will absolutely correct me on this. But Supreme Commander was the one that I always consider to be the follow-up to those.
So TA, we talked about StarCraft earlier.
Yeah.
And generally, when people talk about StarCraft, somebody in the audience always stands up and goes, "Total Annihilation did it first," and they did.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they did it better.
Indeed not. Number 4. We covered this a little bit before the video started, but Diablo 2. Including Lord of Destruction. How many hours? If you've played the game, you're sitting there going, "Oh yeah." If you haven't played the game, then you won't understand. Blizzard has this habit of if not creating genres, then owning them once they dip into the middle of it. With the possible exception of the dedicated first-person shooter, and keep me honest here, gentlemen, I think that most of the other genres that are out there, if Blizzard doesn't outright own it, they have one of the top 3 titles in that industry. And in the case of the dungeon-crawling, point-and-click, loot-grabbing thing, there's not a dungeon-crawling genre. They call games Diablo clones for a reason.
You could still buy the Diablo war chest or the Diablo chest like StarCraft for $20 in Walmart or online wherever, because all the game with the expansions, all that, even Diablo 2, not Diablo 1, Diablo 3, Diablo 2, still has that. You can buy it today.
I don't know. That's another game that I played it once through on my own, and it was an amazing game. And then Lord of Destruction dropped, and I played that through, and I played the new characters, and I loved it. And then a little bit later, I introduced my brother to it, and I played it with him, and I played it with my brother's oldest child, Sam. And then later on, there was a third phase of friends that I was involved with when computers started becoming a little bit more portable and when BattleNet was a little bit more established. There were 3 or 4 times in my life where I picked that game up and played it again and again and again and again. And it was just a gaggle of fun every single time you picked it up and you played it. And I've recently started watching GDQ videos, letting GDQ videos run in the background. Games Done Quick. If you're not familiar with what this is, Google it. But the speed runs are a blast to watch, and they really kind of open your eyes to some of the crazy things you can do in games. But I've recently started watching speedruns for Diablo 2, and that's just made me want to go back and play it again.
Well, the worst part about it is the game's done quick, and segueing just for a second, is that it's amazing to watch, but you almost want to have those nostalgia moments. Like, I watched Games Done Quick like 2 years ago for Link to the Past.
Oh my gosh!
Nintendo. And you watch these guys blow through the game in 15, 20, 30 minutes for stuff, and then they're using these glitches, and you're like, I didn't know that existed. But at the same time, you really think that's awesome. I wanted to watch and see them beat all the guys I fought. I want to see all this stuff. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to completely bypass 98% of the game that we need to get to the end, which kind of
like,
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
When when that game first came out, they were using stasis to jump on a log and fly all the way to the castle and fight him like right after you get out of the unlock area. It's like, wait, what? Why would you do that? You missed the rest of the game.
Yeah, you missed the game. Why are you almost like
For that,
skipping to the last page of the novel?
The 100% completion runs. There's a game runner whose name is Poexel that did a game run, and I'll talk about that here in a second because, well, you know what? Why the hell not? I'm going to let you guys go to in a second. The last game that's on my list is Final Fantasy III.
Okay.
We're going to cover that in just a second.
So number one on your list is?
And again, not the greatest game, but I'm lumping 2 here. I'm going to be a needy bastard and rattle off both Diablo 2 and the last game on my list. This actually shoved out several other entries, and that's Final Fantasy III, which is Final Fantasy VI over in Japan. That's Final Fantasy III wasn't my first exposure to those games, but it is the most memorable of them that I remember playing.
I don't remember which one that was.
Final Fantasy III was the last game that they came out, was the last Final Fantasy game that they came out with on the Super Nintendo. It was the one with the Espers. It was the one with Kefka Palazzo, the Mad Clown.
Okay, yeah, I played 2 to death, but I never really played 3. And I was trying to remember if you're doing 2 with Cecil and, the Dark Knight and all that. Yeah,
and you Spoony Bard.
Yeah, no joke.
No, and I did play Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy IV over in Japan. I did play that one, and it certainly whet my appetite. But Final Fantasy III was one of those things where the planets just aligned. It was the right time in my life for the right system with the right people that I was hanging out with. The game was amazing. The magic system was amazing. The soundtrack from Nobuo Uematsu was amazing. They've redone the game for PlayStation. They re-released it. They re-released it on Game Boy Advance. They've re-released it for mobile. They've
made all the money they can off of it.
Yeah, but when the Super Nintendo Classic came out, I lusted badly after the Super Nintendo Classic just so that I could get Final Fantasy III and play it again with a Super Nintendo controller in my hand. I have it sitting over there. I need to pick it back up and play it again.
Wait, do they have Final Fantasy II on there?
I don't think they do. Sorry.
Thank God I'm not going to go out and spend money.
Wait for it on the Switch.
Right.
We're crossing our fingers here. Google it. But yeah, we were talking about GDQ. There's a speedrunner called Poexel that does a 100% Esper run through Final Fantasy III, and it's like an 8-hour run. But the things that he does with the game and the way that he opens it up, yes, you don't get every single last ounce out of it as though you were playing it slowly yourself, but it really allows you to thumb through the majority of the game and take it in. For the people that want to see all of the bosses get beat, all of the places get gone, and usually in GDQ anyway, when they're doing those 100% runs, there'll be bidding incentives where as long as people raise a certain amount of money, then we'll go and do this optional boss over here. You raise another $50,000, we'll go and do this optional boss over here. The 100% runs in GDQ are just amazing to watch. Some of the any percent runs, like the any percent run that was done in Diablo 2, no glitches, no tricks, no this and that and the other. Just a dude who stopped his leveling at level 20 and went and killed Bale. Who just displayed raw game playing acumen, understood how the RNG worked, understood how the game mechanics worked, and just used raw knowledge and balls of solid rock to go and kill Bale. Those are the last two games on my list. Master Zupan.
Number 2 on my list was mentioned very briefly. Sid Meier's again. Civilization.
Civ.
The entire family. Not a huge fan of 6. But I make up for it by including Alpha Centauri. Did you ever play?
Nope, never played Alpha Centauri.
Oh, Alpha Centauri was so cool. Alpha Centauri came right after 2, before 3. Coolest thing about Alpha Centauri was customizable units.
In what respect?
You could take an infantry, and then you could give them attributes. As you discovered more technologies, you could give them more powerful weapons. But you could customize them because they had things like airdroppable. You just take your infantry unit, you give them airdroppable. All of a sudden, you have
jetpack troops,
parachutists.
Yeah.
You had ones that were had psi shields, so they were better fighting the native alien bugs. But you could customize. I think you had 100 slots. You could customize anything you wanted, and it applied to your infantry, your tanks. They had hover tanks, they had airplanes, boats. I mean, you could make an underwater aircraft carrier.
So I have to ask,
Submersible aircraft carrier.
for as big a fan of Sid Meier's work in general as you are, do you like Catan?
The board game?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's all right to play with the kids.
We don't need to. Oh God.
No.
Yeah. No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. What's the next one on your list?
Well, no, I gotta say one thing. You're talking about the 100 slots on these characters, and all I can think of is the movie Serenity, where all of a sudden, why you bring all those guns? You've only got the 2 hands. Well, I like to have choices. And I'm just imagining your troopers with a shield, weapons, explosives, jetpack, parachutes.
You could only customize them. You could give them a weapon, armor, and then 2 special attributes.
Okay.
So you couldn't give them all everything.
You just had gobs and gobs of choices.
You just had gobs of choices. You had, like I had specific ones for city defenders. They didn't have big guns, but they had huge shields, and then they had the attributes that helped them protect them against the Psyworms, which were the Alpha Centauri's version of the barbarians. They came out of nowhere, would attack your cities. So
ruin it and leave.
Yes. So I had those. I had shock troops. I had scout tanks, high speed.
Okay.
Low armor.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you could customize your armies across the various different ways.
I understand.
But I love 4X games. I love starting off with 2 people, 1 rock, and then going to Mars and beating everybody else there.
There's a flood of them on Steam that Monk Reef and I have played before. One of them's Endless Space series. They have Endless Space 2. Mm-hmm. And he and I had never really done those before, but I got to tell you what, 4X games are great to me for some of the stuff you can do. At the same time, there is nothing worse than waiting for somebody to make their goddamn choices.
Oh, well, I never played any of these multiplayer. This was all single player.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I dumped so many hours into them.
Oh, yeah, it's easy because you're planning a strategy, you have 3 or 4 cities, and 10 cities or 12 cities, and it just exponentially grows the amount of time you have to invest in each one.
Indeed. You're number 2. Or did we reach the end of your list because he stole one of yours?
No, I had extras for honorable mentions and all that, but I kind of run into 2 that are kind of tied for me. And I'll say one first off, and he'll jump in on this one as well, which is the Halo series. Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, because that's where I kind of stopped. 4, interesting, but when I was young and dumb, Halo came out on the Xbox, and I had never bought any system before. I'd owned them, my family had given them to me. Xbox Original was the first game system I ever bought with my own money, and really just sank into it. I will never forget the fact that the day that game came out, I worked at Best Buy. System comes out, hey, we've got a couple extra systems if somebody wants to buy one. Raised my hand, bought one. Bought Halo, bought a couple of the games, extra controller. And I will never forget the fact that that first day, right after I got out of work, I played Halo 1 through the entire night and finished it off in, I can't even remember how many hours. But it was done. Short run, amazing game, loved the story, thought it was so awesome, and continued to play that game with friends for so long. Just for the 4-player split screen, and you would play, you'd hear somebody start up the tank or start up a warthog or grab the rocket launcher, and you were trying not to look at the screen from where they were doing it, but you knew where they were on
I
the
can't
map.
keep focus on split screen. I've just never been able to do it.
You trained yourself. Wow, this isn't on the list. You trained yourself. Honorable mention time. You trained yourself with GoldenEye. Was how I really got used to playing split screen multiplayer games. That was always my thing. Halo, definitely played more of it on PC
Yeah.
than I did on Xbox, and I was never an online multiplayer person. I didn't get into multiplayer Halo until Halo 4, and they remastered. Was it the 10 year, 15 year anniversary when they remastered
10 or
Halo?
15. It was the Master Chief Edition that I just beat my head against the desk. There's a fun story for that, for how we first met.
It's
really
true.
Did that.
No, they re-released a collector's edition of Halo for 360, like on its own. before
Yeah,
they
I think it was the
released
10-year edition.
Was it 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I am going to jump on this.
But Halo 2, the gap that they made from Halo 1 to Halo 2 in evolving the first-person shooter, Doom will always reign king as the thing that everybody played first-person shooters. So many things, Wolfenstein, all the rest. But when you came down to, I think, trashing your friends on a game system, Halo 2 is the one that I will always kind of put there on the top shelf of games where people, between shotguns, rocket launchers, exploding vehicles, they upped their game so much, dual weapons running around. I mean, they really upped that and made that to be kind of one of those competitive games.
The thing that always blew my hair back about Halo 2, the game was amusing enough, but what they did to the Xbox, you talk about, and Final Fantasy 3 was kind of this way too. You had games that came out towards the end of that console's life cycle, and so the developers at that point had figured out how to wring every single last ounce of horsepower out of that console in order to achieve the product that they were after, and just the difference in visuals and gameplay and smoothness and complexity between the original Halo and Halo 2 and you know, Final Fantasy 2 versus Final Fantasy 3. The difference between those two games, when you're looking at the development that gets done at the pinnacle of a console's life, Halo 2 was just absolutely a masterclass, and I'll dump Halo 4 into that boat for 360. The things that they did with Halo 4 when the Xbox 360 was nearing the end of its life cycle were every bit is startling for me, to the point that I believe, and you'll have to keep me honest here, that when they did the Master Chief Edition for the Xbox One, I do not believe they remastered Halo 4.
They didn't remaster Halo 3 even.
Did they not?
They remastered Halo 1 and Halo 2. They updated the maps. They did not touch 3 or 4.
That the remaster they did for Halo 2, especially for the cinematics, was
my God,
gorgeous.
so amazing.
Absolutely gorgeous.
You're next to last.
My number one?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I thought about a lot of other things on this list, but I was in the beta for this game. I was there when they opened the doors, and I was there when they closed the doors from, what was it, 2004 to 2012, City of Heroes.
Oh, wow. I did not see that one coming.
City of Heroes. And I tell you, if Did you ever play it?
I played,
played once.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine were into it, and he let me run around on his account.
When I got to the point where I was able to super jump for the first time, covering about 4 or 5 city blocks with what I felt like a superhero, that game dropped me. I mean, I was always a comic guy. That game dropped me into, a real. I'd never played an MMORPG before then because it was all D&D and D&D ripoff stuff, and I know how to play that stuff. But playing a superhero, beating up supervillains, I'd learned how to tank from watching a friend of mine play EverQuest, so I knew the general mechanics of it. But when I took Mr. Squinty into a supervillain base for the first time with my scrappers and my healer behind me, and for the one time, the scrapper pulled ads and everybody died but me, and while they're all respawning, I'm just standing there taking the hits. They all come back. It's like, you're still here? And yeah, I was still there.
Well, hi.
Thanks for stepping on my moment, Mumford.
We had a random special guest.
And a special guest star,
Yeah.
Mumford, the camera hog.
Swivel-eyed destroyer of worlds.
Who's
But-
ever so adorable and fuzzy.
But City of Heroes, basically allowed me to play out all of your comic book fantasies.
Yeah.
Everything you wanted to do. Save the world. Or going from beating up muggers to saving the world. I never got into the PvP stuff because that wasn't my thing. But just being the rock around which the team could, hang on to. That was as much fun as I've ever had playing video games.
So how was City of Villains a completely separate game? Was it an expansion? Did
City
you
of
play
Villains
it?
started off as a separate game, and then they merged the two because City of Villains never had the population City of Heroes is.
Yeah.
So they actually built a mechanism where you could take your hero, basically, he could go to the dark side, and then he could play on the villain side, or you could just make a new character on the villain side. So they had a redemption path, and they had a dark side path. So you just could go down, go back, you could play all the content that way.
That's cool.
It was fun.
That's very cool.
Like I said, best game ever. I was sorry
For
to
a
see
game
it go.
that came out in 2004. Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, that was the
A game that
heyday
came out in
for a lot of-
2004. You said they shuttered it in 2012?
2012.
An 8-year runtime. That's pretty stinking respectable. For a game
And
that
they
came out
were,
that long ago.
you know,
Right,
from
MMO, yeah.
everybody, what everybody says, NC Soft was still making money on it at the end. They could have let it go. I mean, if they had to, they could have, combined some servers or whatever. But that game could still be playing based just on the number of people still online. Wanting it to
NCSoft had a
happen.
really rough time there towards the end of it. I mean, yeah, they were making money, but I think they way off. But they could have spent, or they had a lot of IP they burned on other things. Because NCSoft was one of those big name game companies that was around for a while.
Yeah, the whole deal, at least the backstory that everybody, all of the developers and stuff have talked about was NCSoft was a Korean company. They're focused on the games that Koreans want to play. The Koreans weren't into the MMOs. At least they weren't into superhero MMOs because it's not a genre that they're familiar with. But yeah, there's some spiritual successors in the works. On Kickstarter, I've backed one of them. They're talking about hopefully releasing either late 19 or early 20, and then we'll see.
All right.
We'll see what
If
they
it
can
lights
do.
you up the same with the City of Heroes, dude, you let me know. I'll come
it was
play
so
with
much
you.
fun.
I'll come play with you.
So much fun.
Last one.
Last one for me, it's more of a recent one, but I've been a follower of Bungie for a long time. And the game that comes to mind, like top of the list, is Destiny. I was so entranced by the story when they first came out with it. It was just one of those games that the day it came out, I took 2 days off of work and just played all the way through. I had the big legendary edition. I still have the ghost that they put out that speaks in Peter Dinklage's voice.
Oh, you mean before they went to Nolan North.
Before they went to Nolan North. I played with all
Peter's
of
too
that.
expensive.
Yeah, and there was a lot of other things that happened. I mean, the most iconic line that he made is that wizard's from the moon, or I probably butchered that terribly. But Destiny was one of those games that, to me, ended up being this amazing story arc they had so much potential with, And I don't fault Destiny 1 to Destiny 2 for what they did. Destiny 2 is kind of where Destiny ended up. It ended up being a great game on its own. They've done a lot with the story. I look forward to seeing if they can do Destiny 3 better. But even the voice actors, dude, Nathan Fillion being one of the most iconic characters for both games. We were talking about Lance Reddick. You also have Gina Torres. You have some of these big name actors and actresses that do amazing voice acting jobs and pull you into the story. And yeah, it's a first person shooter, just like Borderlands, just all the rest. But the way you could drop in and out to go to different zones, you could do raids. I really had wanted something that was a lot more open world. But what you got was still pretty awesome. And I know that there's a lot of people who play it to this day and enjoy the hell out of it. I look forward to someday when I can get back into it where there's a little more content that keeps me attached, but I will always be a Bungie follower regardless.
Our second guest star.
What is...
I don't know why the cats have decided they must join us
I
today.
don't know. They're all over
But they
the
all want to
place.
join the camera.
They love the cameras.
Yeah, top 5 video games. A lot of synergy here. Tons of honorable mentions, but that's probably
throw
going
out a
to have to
couple.
be a clip for a different day.
Just throw out a couple, just titles.
Fez, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
Yeah.
Was just an incredible game.
In that same vein, Force Awakens.
Oh my God, yes!
The ability to throw people around like rag dolls,
For as
to
much-
grab things and toss them,
For
just
as
like
much
a Jedi.
stink as that game got, I remember when that trailer came out, and I'm just losing my mind. For as canon breaking as that game and the second game was, I just and I enjoyed Jedi. I enjoyed Jedi Outcast for the same reason. Being able to go in and just wreck face in a room full of people.
I'm going to throw out TIE Fighter since we're on this.
Oh!
X-Wing and TIE Fighter both. I played the hell out of those. I still remember changing the shield location and swinging around. Yeah, trying to keep up, be able to do your photon torpedoes, do your bombing runs.
I put TIE Fighter over X-Wing just because it was so much prettier.
It was so
game.
refined. It was so TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter was the ultimate evolution.
Had a better
of
storyline.
That game series. Oh yeah, and it was just. I can't even call it a guilty pleasure. Everybody just loved.
No, it wasn't guilty. It was just a pleasure.
You want to talk about one though that broke that same genre though? Descent Free Space.
Yes. I was going to say Descent.
Yeah, Descent
because I
was
love
awesome.
the original, but Free Space and Free Space 2 were both incredible games.
The ability to choose the kind of fighter you wanted to, the fact that you could just put your afterjets on and go as far out as you wanted to, and then turn around and come swing right back around. I'm sure the AI absolutely hated it when they're like, "Wait, where the hell is he going?
Yeah.
Where's he at?
Come back."
They refined that a little bit in Free Space 2, especially once they started intermixing with all of the other normal ships, all of the Sudran ships and the alien tech that you could strap onto your O's and make kind of a little hybridized.
I loved all the Space Simulator games, the Wing Commanders even.
Oh my
Wing
gosh!
Commanders had some great
Wing Commander
stuff.
2 was my bag there. Was Wing Commander 4 again? Mark Hamill.
Yep.
Wasn't
Yeah,
Wing
again,
Commander
Mark
4
Hamill.
where they picked up Mark Hamill and the guy that used to do
3.
Duck Soup? Was it 3?
I thought it was 3. It was
Yeah.
when they started doing the full motion video.
Yeah,
I think
no.
you're right.
The theme from Wing Commander 2 when you were taking off from the ship. Mm-hmm. Wing Commander 2 was the one with the. But going back in the day, the thing about Wing Commander 2 that blew my skirt up when I first played it was Ad-lib and Sound Blaster sound cards had just started to become a thing. VGA cards had just started to become a thing, and a buddy of mine had a system that had a VGA graphics card inside of it and had a Sound Blaster card, and he had managed to manually sign all of the IRQs and the DMAs on his system so that he got both the music and the sound effects working. So you got all of the dialogue spoken in the game and all of the great music, and completely and totally blew out the side of my head. Lemmings was another great old game. They just re-released a version of it for mobile, and it's not bad, but it's not as good as the original game was. Yeah, so many great old games. So many great old games. Could riff on that for a long time.
That's why we're just throwing out titles, but That didn't quite
Yeah.
work.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. And that's we'll have to come back and just have a nostalgia hour or something like that if people are
Nostalgia
interested
hour?
in it.
Hour?
Yeah, I think
Afternoon,
I
perhaps?
think you underestimate the sheer capability. We could make a 20-part series on
Probably.
an afternoon. I'm sure.
Probably we might do that. We might
No,
do that.
no,
we might,
no,
No, not for an afternoon, but the multi-part series. We might do that. We might go from console to console and talk about great games. But for now, we're going to cut this one off. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Stay tuned.